This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, from a very cold Djuma Game Reserve in South Africa. As you can see, we've got a bit of morning traffic in the form of our resident impalas that are, well, some of them are running around and full of beans, as you can maybe hear by the male chasing the females all over the place. Before we get into all the things that we're going to be doing this morning, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got Alex, and it is a very, very warm welcome to all of you that have joined us, but in particular to our kids, and even more in particular to that, the Youth Taronga Zoo. Now, they are a friend of Hayden Turner, who used to work with us a few years ago, so it's always nice to have you guys along, and we must apologize because you were with us yesterday and we forgot to mention you guys, which is not good. So it's nice to have you aboard this morning. Hopefully you have lots and lots of questions for us, and you'll send them through. For all the other kids, remember, kids questions at WildEarth.tv, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. Now, we just started for the morning. The sun is just starting to rise, and I'm going to hope that I can show you the sun rising with some of our impalas. And we're on an open clearing that's close to our camp, and it's always a great place to start our morning, because this is an area where lots and lots and lots of the antelope hang around at night. Because it's a little bit more open, it's easier for them to be able to spot predators like leopards and lions and wild dogs and hyenas and all those things. And so coming out here first thing in the morning is always a good way to see what's actually happening. If you come out here and there's no antelope at all, so we see no impalas, no wildebeest, then generally we know that a predator has walked through here fairly recently. And also we know that it's then time to start looking on the fringes of this open area, because most of our predators will walk on the edge where there's still a little bit of bush, and then they can hunt from those thickets towards the open clearings. So it's a good place to start, and then you kind of just sit here, and if these guys are here, well, then you can just watch them because they're really, really pretty. Impalas are one of the most beautiful antelope that we have out here, and so spending time with them is always nice as well, and they're generally full of action. In the mornings, they typically have a little bit of energy, and they run around and jump about all over the place. This time of the year, particularly the males, because they're in what's called the rut. And so the rut is when the males are trying to find the females or the girls, and they chase them around everywhere, and they snort and carry on and gargle and make all kinds of noise. It's pretty amazing to watch them, so it's very, very pleasant to just sit with our impalas at this time of the day. But it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful start to our morning, that's for sure. The sun is, as you can see, just starting to come up, and it's a beautiful gold color. And so it's really, really nice just to sit here and listen to the sounds of the bush and take in all the sights. All right, I'm going to just have a little look around, see if there's anything that's been lurking here during the night that is predator-based, because it's this time of the morning that we look for them. And while I do that, let's send you all the way up to and beyond Ngala and Eric, who, well, is looking at a beautiful morning scene like we are.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to and beyond Ngala for the morning. My name is Eric, as always, and Owen behind the camera. We have stumbled across a beautiful herd of zebra in the morning light, and it looks like they're just starting their day. They've got their heads down, and looks like they're spending some time feeding in this grassland. It's just such a beautiful scene first thing in the morning. The sun is just about to appear from our right hand side. We've got a beautiful view of the mountains on the left. We've just been spending the last few minutes sitting and listening to see if we could hear any of those alarm calls. There, as Owen's going to show you the beautiful Drakensberg Mountains. So we've been listening for any alarm calls or any predators that might be vocalizing in the later parts of the morning. So any lion calling or leopard that might be rasping. So far we haven't heard anything yet. The zebras aren't indicating that there's too much to worry about. There's a few different sizes around. There's a small one, a couple of big ones. Maddie is asking what species we most commonly come across in our morning game drives. I would probably say it's impala because it's the most abundant. I mean, you see impalas around pretty much every single corner in this area, so that tends to be the animal that we see most. Otherwise, I mean, the general game species like the zebra we see quite regularly. It's actually, at this time of year in Ngala, it's really nice because the grass is so long, it's still holding nutrients, and there's enough water for these animals to move around comfortably here. So things like wildebeest, zebra, impala, sometimes even giraffe, I guess those would be the easier and the ones that we see most often and most regularly. And see, there's a bird doing its morning duty, keeping itself clean and also keeping that zebra clean. It's incredible how early, I mean, these oxpeckers, as soon as it's light, will be leaving their nests in a lot of the dead trees around this area, and I'm sure they didn't have to move too far to find this herd of zebra this morning. And just look at the light hitting the whole herd now. I mean, when an adult picks up its head to have a scan around, it just catches that beautiful, beautiful golden light. There's also a couple of impalas that are off to the left of the herd. Might hear the oxpeckers starting to get a little bit more chatty. See, we are probably going to stick around here for a little bit longer and just to see if anything else happens with these zebras. But I believe there's a nice big animal waiting to say good morning in Djuma, so we'll send you across there.
Good morning and welcome to our neck of the woods. We've just got it mobile from camp on a very frigid morning, followed up on some trumpeting, which led us to these guys. We're surrounded by elephant all around us, and it's a nice place to be. My name is David Hancock. On camera we have BK with his cold thumbs. It is a chilly morning, extra chilly. Anxiously awaiting the sun to rise and give us some of its warmth. Quite a large number of elephants here. I only see a handful, but I can hear lots of them down here in the drainage line. There was a little shout. Listen to that sound, crunching and crashing. Should we roll a little bit forward, BK, and see if we can get another look? Oh, that's beautiful. It's nice and lit up there by the sun. The tree is eating isn't particularly tasty. Not one of the favorites of elephants, so does look like he's taking a while to chew it. Although the elephant does seem to be enjoying his breakfast. Well, there's another animal out that Tristan has found that's also enjoying its breakfast, although a lot higher up. Let's send you over to him.
Indeed, we have a very, very big animal, just like David's, that's also having its breakfast. It's far away at the moment, but I stopped far away because I just think it's the most beautiful scene. You've just got those little bits of sun rays that are starting to come up in between the thick green dark bush, and it just makes the giraffe stand out so nicely, and it gives you an idea of just how big they are when you compare those trees to how tall it is. That giraffe is a long, long, long way away, and they're easy to spot, thankfully, because of how tall they are. But it's obviously one of the most iconic animals that we have out here. They're unlike anything else. And it's amazing to see just how high they can reach in order to feed. If I were to go and stand there, I probably would only reach up to maybe its tail. And I'm 6'2", so I would be about as tall as its tail, and that's about it. So they really are very, very large creatures. But look at that beautiful golden sunlight. Isn't that nice? So this is a big male giraffe that we're looking at. You can tell all the way from here just because of his ossicones on top of his head. He's got ones that are bald on top, and they're very big and thick. So those horn-like structures are like that on a male. The female generally has very, very thin ones, and they have lots of hair on top of their head. So even from all the way where that giraffe is, we can tell that it is a boy rather than a girl. Now I'm going to get a little bit closer so we can show you more of the details. I just wanted to show you how pretty it was. I mean, you can see how far that giraffe is from where I am. It's a long, long, long way away. But we'll get closer. It won't take us long to get there. I just wanted to show you how pretty it is this morning. It's also fairly cold, so it was nice just sitting still. Ooh. Right, so Maddie, who's one of the leaders, you're asking about which animal I'm most excited to see when I leave or when we go on a safari, and which ones get us hyped up. So for me personally, I think every guide is going to be different. We all have our favorite animals that we like to spend time with because somehow we all kind of associate that animal, or we like what that animal does. So for me, it's leopards. If I can see a leopard every single game drive of my life, I would be absolutely the happiest person in the world. I love spending time with them. It's my favorite thing to do. So leopards would be for me. But that's not to say that I don't get hyped up about all kinds of other animals. The thing about Africa is that we're so spoilt in that we have so many different animals in this area, and so many iconic animals, that it's difficult not to get hyped up about pretty much all of them. So I absolutely love leopards, but I really enjoy spending time with elephants, hyenas, wild dogs. So those also make things pretty hyped up, particularly the wild dogs. They're so crazy in the way that they run around and hunt, and generally very active, and so they can hype up even those people, well, people that potentially are fast asleep would be hyped up by wild dogs and the chaos that they cause. So those are the kind of animals for me, but like I said, it will be different for David, it'll be different for Eric. They will have their favorites and their animals that they really want to see on a game drive. The thing is, though, is when you're out here and you are a guide, most of the time what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the animals that your guests want to see. So it's all about them and the animals that they want to get hyped up seeing. And so this morning, that's you guys. So you guys need to tell us what animals you would like to see this morning. Maybe some of you have favorite African animals, and you can tell us which ones you would like us to try and find. It's not always easy out here because it's wild, and the animals are wild, and they can move big distances, but you know, we'll try our best and see if we can find the things that you guys want to see. Isn't this giraffe cool? Now, it's amazing. This giraffe is busy eating off a tree that, for you and I, if we had to touch it, it would cut us very, very badly. This tree has got lots of thorns on it, but that giraffe has a very unique system. You can see it's got a long, long face, which means that its mouth is away from its eyes and its ears, which are its sensitive areas, and it's able to then put its nose into one of those thorn trees and start feeding. Now, inside its mouth, it's got this tongue that has got these little rubbery growths on it, and those rubbery growths lack nerve endings and blood vessels, which allows them to feed off the thorns. And even if the thorns cut them a little bit, it's not going to make them bleed and it's not going to hurt them. And they can then feed off these trees that have really nutritious leaves that are full of energy, because generally a tree that has thorns has good tasting leaves, and that's why it's got thorns, is to try and protect itself. And this giraffe is able to then use that. The interesting thing, though, is that particular tree, or those types of trees in the family that's of thorn trees, they are able to actually defend themselves in another way. So it's not just about the thorns for them. What they can do is that they can basically secrete pheromones that go out into the air and are carried by the wind. And so what happens is as this tree's been attacked, it will release these pheromones, and those will go downwind to the next tree, and the next tree will realize that there's a potential predator of trees in the area, like a giraffe, and it starts to produce a thing called tannins. Now, tannins are something that makes the tree taste really bad. It makes it bitter, and the animals don't like it. And so what happens is the giraffe eats, and then it goes to the next tree, and that tree starts to become bitter, and so the giraffe then keeps moving, and it doesn't just sit at the same tree and eat all the leaves for that tree, because if it did, it would be in a situation where the tree potentially could die from it. So it's a way of the tree protecting itself and making sure that the giraffe doesn't eat everything and potentially kill the tree. Jess, who's 16 years old, Jess, it's really dependent on the areas that you're in. So here in this particular part of South Africa, you can see it's a very bushed environment. So we've got a lot of trees here, which means a lot of food for giraffe. And therefore, a giraffe is not covering huge distance at all in a feeding stint. It's going to walk a little bit, feed, walk a little bit, feed. And in the course of a day, might only cover a kilometer or two. But if you go into areas like the Kalahari, which you'll see a little bit later because it's very exciting, today we're going to be for the first time down in Swalu, Kalahari, which is very cool. Giraffe in those kind of environments, desert environments, they're covering a lot more ground in order to be able to find the food that is necessary. The nice thing, though, with giraffe is that when they do find food and they eat, they don't have to worry too much about covering the ground to the next point of food, because these guys are what's called ruminants. They're able to regurgitate food and re-chew it and gain the nutrients there. So even when they're between feeding points, they're still able to essentially feed by regurgitating and chewing it up and then swallowing it back down again. So they can gain nutrients pretty much throughout the day by doing that system, and it means that they don't have to spend all the time just trying to find food. They can obviously look out for predators and various other things, as well as move around and kind of find other alternative food sources. Okay, well, from here, where we are with this giraffe, there's actually a hyena den that's very, very close. So I'm going to just quickly pop in there and see if the little babies are out. And so while I do that, I'm going to send you back up to and beyond Ingala with Eric, who I think is enjoying a big herd of elephants.
Well, we came down to check the Simbambili River, and this elephant was walking on the opposite bank, so we thought we would come and have a look and just look at how nicely shaped those tusks are, or at least the one tusk that we can see. It's really beautiful. I mean, it grows straight out in front of them. A lot of the time, elephant tusks will grow straight down. See, it's getting some really nice grass this morning, and this dappled light is beautiful. You get such nice features popping out. I mean, look at the ridges on the trunk. You don't often get to see that too much. Not getting too much nutrition, I would imagine, from all of that dead grass. And that's why it's spending so much time trying to flick and just get as much dead grass as possible. Dara, you are asking a very good question about how good an elephant's memory is, and I think that they've got a very, very good memory. I remember reading a study about elephants in the droughts, I think in like the 1960s and the 1970s in East Africa, and they were saying that the matriarchs who lived before the droughts and who knew where all of the waterholes were had a much greater chance of surviving than matriarchs who were born during the drought and didn't really know where to find the water. And so, I mean, that was probably 30, 40 years down the line that they remembered where these waterholes are. And I'd love to, in the wintertime, I mean, if you look in these areas, you've got these beautiful pathways that we call game trails that these elephants will have a very, very good knowledge about. And so they'll be able to decide which game trail leads where, which areas are best for water, which areas are best for feeding. And so they've got this area mapped out incredibly well, and I'm sure they know it so much better than we do. Just look at that face. I mean, it just speaks and shouts wisdom. This beautiful, peaceful animal. If you look at the tusk there, there's two very, very distinct colors. So it's dirty, and then right at the tip, it's quite a white color. And so that could just be because it's been using its left tusk a lot more. So they're very tipped to maybe strip some bark in these winter months, maybe even to dig for some roots occasionally. So it's very much white, but also very pointed and quite sharp at the tip. If we get a look at his right-hand tusk, you might see it sticking past his trunk every now and again. It's broken off there. Very nice shot, sure. And so that would be from him using it more and more. And so he would probably be right-tusked dominant, and so he'll be using that tusk. It gets thinner and thinner, and eventually it reaches a point where it will break a little bit like that. Looks like he's half asleep, that eyes literally just open to see down what's in front of him, so you can pick out the nicest long grass. Oh. Jade, you're 13 years old and you're asking how many elephants we find in a herd. It depends. So I mean, this elephant is a bull, so he's happy to be by himself, and most of the time you'll see a bull by itself like this, or within small groups of maybe 4 or 5 individuals. The females and the youngsters are the ones that stick to much more of a solid herd. And so, I mean, a matriarch will have, she's the oldest and most experienced elephant, and she'll just have her nieces and her daughters. And I would say, I mean, 5 or 6 adults with their youngsters, so probably somewhere between the region of 8 to 10 would be the average size of an elephant herd. But then you do see them traveling together in big groups sometimes. I mean, just the other day, we were sitting at a waterhole and we counted 60 elephants coming down to drink in one big group. So that was quite spectacular. And if they do group together, sometimes it's maybe 2 or 3 different families, so it will be maybe 20 or 30 elephants. So we probably going to just stick around this elephant, maybe see if he heads down towards the river to try and get something to drink, and then we might get the opportunity to see him drinking and digging up some water. So in the meantime, whilst we wait and watch him, we'll send you across to Tristan, who's with the hyena den.
We are indeed. We're having a good start to our morning, that's for sure, between impalas, giraffe, and now 2 of the cutest members of our Djuma ecosystem. These are 2 little ones that are, as you can see, full of playfulness. They climb all over their mother. Their poor mother is like a jungle gym for them, and they're able to jump on her and play and pull her ears and, well, generally just drive her mad, as you can see. You two are being bullies this morning to your poor mother. It's a Sunday, and poor Ribbon, for us, a Sunday morning, and poor Ribbon, which is the name of the adult hyena, she's probably trying to have a little Sunday morning sleep, but these two little hooligans have decided it's time to wake up, and they're ready to play, and you can see they're busy kind of biting her, and this will be something that is important because, well, it's all bonding that's taking place, and they obviously are practicing certain things. As they get older, the playing like this and biting of their mom and those kind of things are all ways that they're going to use. With you two are just full of it this morning, aren't you? Oh, goodness. That's what happens when they get too playful. Then one falls and then they panic. And off they go down, and you can see they live in this big termite mound, so when they feel like something hasn't gone quite right, then they run down inside because they know that that's the safe place. But I think for some reason these guys have had, oh, look at that, she's hugging it. Or either that or it's like, enough, I'm going to just pin you to the ground. Ribbon, I'm sorry, girl. She doesn't even open her eyes. It's quite funny to watch how these little guys just run all over her, and she actually doesn't even open her eyes for 1 second. She's just happy to kind of lie there and just take the punishment that comes with these two. Oh, this is cute. This is the most playful that I've seen them. I mean, I haven't been to this den very much. One of the other guides that works with us, Lauren, she spends a lot of time here, but they generally in the mornings when it's cold like this are normally tucked up and quite sort of sleepy and not too busy, but for some reason this morning it's full chaos. I wonder if maybe Ribbon only got back recently from a long night of walking around, and that's why she's having a nap, and these guys are so playful as their mom is back, and so they now want to play with her. But if you look at the one on the right, it's run away now, but it was rubbing itself on the grass. Now, what they often do is they do what's called scent marking or anal pasting. And what that is they've got a little gland that sits under their tail, and they'll walk over grass stems, and that paste will come out, and that's able to then mark a territory. So already, even at this age, these little ones will start practicing that behavior, which is pretty interesting. Now, Alex, you're asking about how do we tell hyenas apart? Well, like most animals out here, they're all got unique patterns on them. So us as humans, we have unique fingerprints. These guys have unique spot patterns. So all of our hyenas in this area will look slightly different. So to most people, if they saw a hyena, they're like, that's a hyena, and a hyena looks the same. But actually, every single one of them has a unique spot pattern on their coat, and that's how we identify them. Now, the two little ones you can see are still dark. They haven't got their spots yet. That's because they're still so little. But as time goes, they'll start to develop little spots, and they will then have their own kind of unique coat pattern. And you can see the one around the neck is already starting to get lighter, colored neck, and those little spots will start coming out around that neck area. And that's how we would be able to identify them. You guys are being super cute this morning. Now, they'll also be teething at this time as they start to get those little teeth coming out, and that means that they'll then start biting trees and all kinds of other things to be able to just get rid of that irritating teething problem. Okay, we're going to sit here with these guys. We're going to enjoy the playfulness that are these hyena cubs, and in the meantime, for the first time actually, on WildEarth, we're going to be sending you down to Swalu, Kalahari. I'm so excited about them being with us because it's a completely different environment to here, and it promises to be really, really exciting.
Good morning from a beautiful Kalahari. I hope you're going to join us on this journey, and particularly our young viewers. Come see what we've got. It's going to be an adventure for all of us, and we've got a lot to explore over the next couple of weeks. And please feel free to engage, ask as many questions as you want. It's going to be learning for all of us, and just look what we've got to offer. I'm as excited as the viewers are. I promise you, every single day that I go out here, it's another opportunity to flip and try understand this incredible environment. And I just think, you know, the more we can get involved, get out, sort of touch things, feel things, sort of listen. There's jackals calling in the distance here as I'm speaking. Now they've stopped. But yeah, let's see what we've got. There's some exciting things for this morning that I want to try. Is we've got really cool meerkats just down the road over here. And great meeting you too, Sue, and it's good having you join us on this. What a morning, huh? Beautiful. So we're going to go see if we can locate some meerkats. As you can see, it's a bit of a cloudy morning. It's quite cool. There's not much wind, but these little guys do like warming themselves up before they go out foraging. So once the sun is up, they're going to be up. So we'll get down to the burrows, see if we can locate them, and then we'll come back to you guys. Just out of interest, that sound that you can hear in the distance there, there's a bit of a yapping. That's a blackback jackal alarm calling. So on the way down, we might even be lucky and see a predator. But I've no idea what it is, but let's have a look. Morning, Sylvia. Sorry, please repeat that question. Yeah. Oh, that's a very, very good question, and thank you very much for asking it. This red color is actually, it goes back a long time, and when I say a long time, we're going back 1.6 billion years. So these hills that you're seeing in front of us here are known as the Coronaberg, and they were laid down as seabed deposits about 1.6 billion years ago. A lot of iron in the rocks, and as these hills have eroded over time, so that iron sort of mixed in with the sand. And what we're seeing, this red color, is actually a result of the iron on the sand grains oxidizing. So essentially we're seeing a rust color, and it varies a lot. I mean, you'll see we'll go areas later where it's this beautiful rich red color, and then other areas are very light pink color. So that's a very, very good question. Thank you for asking it. That's gorgeous, eh? Yeah. And let's head out back to Tristan with the hyenas. I think they've got some good activity going that side as well. So we're going to carry on here and enjoy the hyenas on that side.
There is indeed. These little ones are being full of nonsense this morning. They are really running around like hooligans. One of them just fell down the mound. There we go. What are you doing? You're being silly this morning. It's that one in particular is the naughty one. It's the one that's jumping around like a little hooligan, and over and under and up and down, and then, like I say, eventually just now fell down the mound where it went rolling down when it lost its own balance, and ended up at the bottom covered in grass and dust, and then had to come bounding back up again. What are you doing? You're getting naughty, I can see this. And they're getting adventurous too. They're starting to venture further and further and further away. There we go. This one's going to hopefully mark. There we go. You see that? Just walks over the grass, and that's it marking territory. Your legs are still too little to be climbing so high up the mound, guys. They don't seem to care, do they? They're having the best time this morning. And of course, Ribbon herself, she's so used to us that she doesn't mind us being at the den. You can see us talking and being here doesn't actually faze her at all. This is not the first time that we've spent with her at a den site where she's having her little ones. And so she knows that we're not a threat at all. And as long as Mom is sleeping like that and is happy and quiet, then the little ones will play, and they'll be comfortable in the fact that we're not a threat to them. Eventually you'll see that these little ones will actually get so brave that they'll wander right up to the car and they'll start even looking at you and sniffing around, and sometimes they even get naughty and bite the tires and all kinds of things. That's how relaxed they eventually get to our presence. For now though, because of how small they are, they're still a little bit nervous if we move around too much. So if I started the car, you'd find they'd come running down and go into the little den in order to hide out. So they still have that instinct that they need to be careful when there's loud noise or when there's any sort of movement around the den that isn't another hyena. Then they go in and they hide away. But when we're sitting quietly like this and just talking, then they're absolutely happy to play around like little hooligans. Oh goodness. Ribbon, I'm so sorry. Your Sunday sleep has gone very badly for you. Rihanna, so hyenas will have 2 cubs, maximum, sometimes 1. They only have 2 teats, which means that if they had more than 2 cubs, they wouldn't be able to feed them all. So the 2 teats allows them to be able to give milk to both of them, and that allows, obviously for all the cubs to get nutrients. If they had too many, like I say, it would be very, very, very difficult to be able to give them the nutrients that they need and keep them from, getting malnutrition. It's interesting because a lot of people would think that they would have more. Obviously, a lot of people think that they're part of the dog family, which they're not. And we know that dogs have quite big litters sometimes. But these guys, like I say, are not part of the dog family. They're in their own family completely. And so while they might look like dogs, they're not dogs. And that's why they have very different things that happen to them, and in particular, only giving birth to 2 cubs at a time. I feel so sorry for Ribbon this morning because she's having the hardest time trying to have a nap, and these little ones just going crazy. Okay, you can see that one's busy scent marking all over the place, making sure that everyone knows this is its den. In the meantime, though, it sounds like David, well, he's found himself a big, tall giraffe like we had earlier, and he wants to tell you all about it.
Welcome back. We've just come onto the Simbambili property. We're going to see what we can find. Just stop to enjoy this beautiful giraffe in the morning sunlight, which is now on a mission, heading off. Watch it go on its way. Got a great vantage point from up here. What can it see? Always on the lookout, always wary. It's almost impossible to sneak up on a giraffe without it spotting you. From their vantage point, they can see just about everything. Very cool. Let's head back down to the open area. See what is out there. Simbambili's got this beautiful open area that I really enjoy. Actually a beautiful spot with the vista. Some impala down there behind it. Let's enjoy him a little bit more. There's no hurry out here. Jade, you're 13. You've asked, is it normal to only have one giraffe on his own? And it is. They have an interesting social structure. It's very loose. There's no set number. There's no set groups. Generally, the only 2 that are always together are mother and her young. Whereas the other giraffe, adult giraffe, sometimes stay together, sometimes they are on their own. Often a mature male like this will be on his own. The word that we use to describe it is called gregarious. and it means they do spend time together, but they like to spend time together, but they can also be on their own. Well, it's very exciting that we got to see the pups this morning. I'm going to send you back over to Tristan and Ruben.
It is super exciting that we've got to spend some time with these guys. It's always nice, like I say, being allowed into a den with the mothers. They ultimately, it's a very, very, very kind of trusting moment to be able to come and spend with a animal and its little babies. They obviously know that there's a lot of dangers out here, and they've got to keep their babies safe. And the fact that they trust us to come and sit here. Look at her teeth. Do you see how she's opened her mouth? You see the size of her teeth. Massive, massive teeth. Shame, girl. Have you had enough now? I think she's had enough of being bullied by her own offspring. You can see the size of her and how big those little cubs will eventually get. She's much, much, much larger than they are. Oh, and as soon as she lies down, we're back again to cause trouble. Can you hear them also talking? That's cool. Now, what might have happened is they might have decided to start suckling. So now that she's repositioned, sometimes what happens is when they reposition like this, then the little babies will find a place to start suckling, and they'll kind of bed down and become a lot more or less boisterous, should we say, and calm down a little bit. Sometimes it's short-lived. If they don't feel like drinking too much, then they suckle for a little bit and then they start running around again. But it looks like, I'm just trying to see their little bottoms, but it looks like they've kind of settled in with her and have started to suckle. I can just see their backs moving. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for them to settle because they've got to adjust themselves and kind of find place for the both of them to lie, because if one is suckling, the other one immediately kind of goes into that area to suckle as well, because it doesn't want to be left out. It wants to be a part of the action, and so you find that they try and kind of like wiggle their way in and push each other around until such time as they can actually just get a comfortable position. Unfortunately for us, it's just not a great view that we have now. It was better earlier, but we'll reposition just now and see if we can actually see them kind of suckling and moving around. Amy, 16 years old, really dependent. It's never always the same. So hyenas will obviously live in clans, and those clans, while they can be related and they'll go and potentially confront predators together or defend territory together, they don't always live in the same place. So sometimes what you'll find, because of the ranking system that is in hyenas, there's basically a matriarch that is on top. For the most part, it is sometimes possible for a male to start heading up a clan, but it's very, very, very rare. What you normally find is a female, a dominant female or a matriarch, and then it goes down in ranking through the females and then into males and kind of goes to the bottom. Now, if there's a situation where the clan gets super big, so in a situation where, let's say hypothetically, you've got a clan of 50 hyenas, what you might find is that there's just too many of them to den in one spot. And so while this den might be the den for the matriarch and maybe the one below her, and they might have a communal den together, lower end or lower ranking females might have a den somewhere else. And so they don't always live in the exact same place. But pack or clan sizes can vary massively. So even though they might be in different places denning, they'll all be related and they'll all look after each other and defend territory together. And those can be clans of 5, 6 animals, all the way up to over 100 in a clan. So it really just depends where you are, the availability of foods, the other predators that are in the area, how much pressure these hyenas are getting from things like lions, if the little ones are being taken by snakes and leopards and lions and other hyenas, and what are the other hyena clans around them doing. and then food availability is the last part of it. So, you know, it really depends. It's such a difficult thing to say. This clan here that we see is quite small in comparison to the clan that is to the west of them. The clan to the west of them, the last time we kind of pieced it together, was closer to 50 hyenas. I'm not so sure what it is now. It was a few years ago because we don't operate there very often. But this area, the clan is much smaller. It's much closer towards the sort of 10 low teens around there. It's not a huge clan in comparison to the one to the west, so it varies a lot through the areas that you're in, and we're just lucky that we have a clan that spends a lot of time on our area and dens on our area. It allows us to be able to spend so much time with them and get to know them so well. This particular female, we were talking earlier about how you tell the difference. If you look now, she's showing her left ear, which is the most distinct thing on this female. It's the easiest way to identify her. You see she's got a big kind of cut out of her ear, and if she puts her head up and faces forward towards you, that ear almost makes like a little B on there, and that's why you can kind of ID her pretty fast. Then obviously her spots, but the ear is really distinct. Now, the kids this morning seem to have had a good morning. I mean, they got a bit spoilt in some regards. We didn't have any of the cats, but lots and lots of other things. But unfortunately, it's the time to kind of finish up with the kids and start out with everybody else. Kids, obviously, you're welcome to carry on watching and carry on sending in your questions. But for those of you that are joining for the normal part of the drive, welcome. It's nice to have you on board. It's an exciting morning, purely because not only do we have, you know, our two normal Djuma feeds and one from and beyond Ngala, but we've also added Swalu Kalahari, which is, for me, super exciting. And I'll get into it now because I'm jealous of all of you that you get to watch stuff from Swalu. I've always wanted to go to Swalu and haven't managed to get there yet. And I say yet because I will get there eventually, but it has got so many cool things that is so different from where we are. We're in the eastern side of South Africa where it's bushy and thick, and we have a lot of vegetation, and it is a certain type of climate. But in Swalu Kalahari, the Kalahari system is more a desert-based system, and there's some really cool things that occur there. Amazing animals like pangolins and aardvarks and aardwolf and meerkats, which are fascinating creatures. And the contrast of those creatures, as well as the ones that we see here, and the way that they have evolved and adapted to each area that they're living in, is going to be fascinating to see the differences between the two. So it's an exciting day, that's for sure, and I'm sure a lot of you might have questions about Swalu, so remember just to use hashtag WildEarth if you're going to ask any questions, and at FC on the YouTube chat streams, and we'll try and answer a lot. I'm sure Dylan in Swalu is going to have lots and lots of questions to answer this morning. So talking about him, let's send you across to Swalu Kalahari and see what they're up to.
Back again. So one thing that I really enjoy is people actually engaging with us. So please don't be shy. Feel free to ask any questions that you want about this beautiful reserve we're on. You know, I can tell you a little bit about myself if you're that interested. And yeah, it can be anything. It can be about the landscapes, animals, conservation measures that we use here, anything like that. So please, yeah, don't be shy. We're just ambling on to where the meerkats are now, or hopefully we'll find them. But I'm giving you a little bit of background about myself. Oh, before I go further, Jean-Ray is our cameraman, and he says hi. He's stuck on the other side of the camera there, but there we go. So, Fanmail, welcome to. Yeah, so I've been on Swalu for 15 years now. I'm loving it, probably more than I ever did before. You know, every single day this place just gets better. I don't know how that works, but that's the reality. And yeah, it's just good having you guys with. Yes, these colors, I don't know if you guys can see it, you know, with the camera, but the colors on these clouds this morning are just drop dead gorgeous. Good morning, Anak. That's a very, very good question. So, yes, they are actually ruled by females. You get a dominant pair, and we can talk more about that when we're actually with the meerkats, but you're 100% right. That dominant pair is actually, the female is the key one in the meerkat groups, and she really is the boss. There's no question about it, and hopefully we'll see that female when we're with these meerkats. It's still a little bit cool down here. With this cloud cover, you know, the sun's not going to be pushing through these clouds probably for another 40 minutes, 45 minutes. But we want to get there before they get up, you know, just so they get used to us being around the burrow, that kind of thing. And obviously we'll be very sensitive about it. But it's always good to be there before they get out of bed. Yeah. Oof, this is beautiful, eh? Chris, that's a great question. So we've got obviously we've got a lot of species that are similar to reserves like Djuma, things like impala and that, but then we've also got these other really cool little things that some of them actually do occur down there, but they're very, very seldom seen. Things like aardvark, pangolins, bat-eared foxes, Cape foxes. We've also got like common species, Cape ground squirrels. That's these adorable little squirrels. They don't climb trees, and they often co-inhabit burrows with meerkats and yellow mongoose. So yeah, we've got lots of species out here. But I'm excited to show you all of them, and we've got some other very special ones that we'll be very lucky to see as well, close up. And we normally see them from a distance. Things like Hartman's mountain zebra. And they live way up in the hills. So these are very, very special animals. So we must just keep our eyes peeled. Yandra and myself are both just keeping them open for you guys. So, and we'll point them out immediately if we do get them. We're going to go over to Eric at Ngala. They're just following up on some things over there. So we're just going to carry on with the meerkats, and over to Eric.
Welcome back. So cool that we get to show you a little bit of Tsali. I know that I'll definitely be watching the safari lives when I'm not on, just so I can see what that place looks like. And we ourselves have moved away from that elephant where you last saw us, and we've decided to head down and towards the river. And so we're basically driving from west to east along the southern side of the Timbavati River. And we're trying to find any tracks or signs of a leopard this morning. We haven't seen anything yet, but you never know with these leopards, and it's always good to give it a pretty nice hard attempt in the early morning to see if we find them. They might still be active and still be moving, so that's why we're trying now. It's beautiful. I mean, I'm sure you can see how layered up still, but the sun is starting to warm up the surrounds, and so it is feeling a little bit warmer. Might take 1 or 2 layers off within the next 2 hours or so. So we are driving around towards a small little pan that when we last checked didn't have any water in, and so it's always worth just checking those kinds of areas. There are 1 or 2 small little so Sue, you saying that the morning light is looking so gorgeous, and I agree with you. And I think what accentuates it is the colors that we're experiencing in the bush at the moment. So it's not just the bright, lush greens of summertime, but now we're starting to get more of the yellows, the goldens, reds, oranges. And I've just been so fascinated, and I think this season I've been appreciating a lot more than most is just the change of color. And I mean, I've been trying to count the different species that we're seeing and which ones are changing first, which ones might not be changing so much. And now that we're in the riverbed, because we're so close to water, most of the trees are still green. But if we start moving uphill where there's not too much underground water, So we're going from one gorgeous morning light to another, so we'll be sending you straight back to Tswalu to see what they've got.
I have no doubt the Lowveld must be looking gorgeous this morning. But look at these clouds. You know, you can come out here. We've actually got these clouds, we've got a huge cold front on the way in. So if you want to see something really funny, watch me on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Jandre and I are going to be shivering and chattering. It's going to go down to a low of -4 with a high of 11 degrees over those couple of days. So these clouds, with that drop dead gorgeous light that you see coming through there, this is kind of the forefront of this cold front moving in. I mean, that is just beautiful. We've actually got a herd of springbuck below here as well. This is one of the really iconic Joy, your timing of your question was absolutely impeccable. As we're standing here, we're looking at a herd of springbuck against the backdrop of the mountains and the camelthorn trees. So this is one of the really iconic antelope species of the Kalahari, and not just here, but the let's say the more semi-arid to arid areas of southern Africa. You get them through Botswana, Namibia, large areas of South Africa as well. Many people ask, you know, what is the difference in a springbuck and an impala? And we've actually got both here. There's not that many reserves that there's a natural overlap in their distribution of these two species. But the springbuck are very clearly, they've got 3 distinct colors on them. You know, that lovely light brown, reddish brown on top, then that dark, almost black stripe in the middle, and white bellies. Whereas impala tend to be just a more two-tone animal, you know, very light underside, and then a russet red on the top. So just please repeat that question. Alamua, that's exactly right. This is our version of impala. And they're obviously very important, and they fill that same role in terms of being a very important food item for things like cheetah, big predators on springbuck, and things like jackal, caracal, also known as a lynx by some people. You know, they'll go for the lambs a lot. There's actually a couple more out to the right here as well. Wow. Thanks for that, Daniel. That's what I like to hear. You know, one of the things that I get so excited about, and it doesn't matter how many times I've seen an animal, when I get people that can engage and say, well, how exciting, how cool is that? I think it's just the best thing in the world. So thanks for that, Daniel. I think it's a... Well, while Jandre and I are enjoying our springbuck here, let's head over to David and Njuma and see what they've got. I think there's a big kudu bull right on top of the mountains there.
Very, very cool that you're getting to experience that Kalahari area. Such a magnificent piece of wilderness with such a variety of wildlife. It's the beauty of the bush, is the diversity. Just looking here on the road, we've been following some hippo tracks. He's no doubt going back down to the Simbambili Dam. I wonder if you can see that, VK. It's a little bit close. Let me just back up a little bit. Mr. Hippo was walking down this road. So remember, at night time they'll go and find some nice grass to feed on, and then make their way back to the dam before sunrise. Often defecating in this manner. You can see how it's been sprayed all over the grass here. See, it's kind of hard to see with the sun just behind it, but there's a lot of dung there that's been scattered. They use their tail and they scatter it as they defecate. I'm going to carry on and see if we can find you a nice hippo track. Right down there in the sun. I believe from the comments that Mr. Hippo at Vuatila Dam was very loud last night. They can be very noisy when they want to be. Here's a nice example of hippo tracks. Kind of similar to rhino tracks. Can you see this one, BK? This one over here, I'm going to circle it. You got it. How about this one? There's one over there. Sorry, I'm blocking it there with the vehicle. There's a nice one as well. So Mr. Hippo walked down here. His tracks go all the way down this road. Quite similar to a rhino, except there's an extra toe. So I'm going to try and point it out here. Here's the left toe, front left, front right, and then the right toe. A little pad at the back here. So at first glance, they often get mistaken for rhino tracks, but you'll notice there's an extra toe. Well, this guy won't be hard to track. We definitely know where he is, just down there in the Simbambili Dam. Let's go down there and see if there's anything else around the dam. I wonder where that lioness went that Tristan had last night. That pulled that impala out of here. Sorry, let me just plug myself back in here. Linda is saying that hippo track is big. There's a big hippo track. Big foot. And a big body above the feet. Takes big feet to support all that weight. And there it is. In the water. I'm going to pull up here and have a quick look. Just down here in front of us. Andrea, you say you're glad the impala isn't floating in the water anymore. I think Mr. Hippo agrees with you. He was probably getting quite tired of rotting meat in his waterhole. He could have even been the one that pushed the impala out. Have been known to pick up carcasses and move them out of water. Get this tree off to our right, this dead tree. It looks like a dead knobthorn. Get the birds that are up there. One of them just gave that ear-piercing call of theirs that's so noticeable, so distinguishable. There's another call. It's an ibis called a hardy-daw. Very, very common in cities. If you spend time in Johannesburg, Pretoria, that area in the Highveld, you'll listen to that very distinguishable call, often associated with early mornings, and many an angry word has been directed towards these birds as they wake people up. They've got a knack of calling when they fly, leading to the comment that these birds appear to be afraid of heights because they get louder in their call the higher they fly. Although I don't think they're afraid of heights, just very loud. Critter freak, you say. What a lovely ibis. They are beautiful. Glimmering green in their plumage as the sun catches them. Like I say, often people aren't too fond of these birds because of their loud calling. But out here in the bush, it's very welcome. Steve, that iridescent color or that sheen is in their feathers, it's in their plumage. And then you also get a different species called a glossy ibis. There's a little bit more gloss on it. The plumage is absolutely beautiful there. Well, as we watch these hardy-daws ruffle and warm up, let's send you over to Eric, who's on the move. Sorry about that little glitch with the feed. A lot of the viewers are wondering if these birds are migratory. No, they're not. They stick to a region, as far as I know. Well, sounds like Ngala is back up and running, so let's send you over there and have a look at what they got to say.
I am on the move, and I'm actually trying to cover ground relatively quickly. There's one of the vehicles, Ronan and Sean, are out giving us a hand this morning, and they managed to find that young male lion. And so I thought it would be fantastic for us to go over and see how he's doing. It sounds like he's walking, and he's walking relatively quickly, which is absolutely great news for us. So it'll be so cool for us to show you, how he's overcoming that injury of his that he's had for so long. So that's why I'm just driving a little bit faster than I was a bit earlier, just so we can try and catch up to them. Sounds like he's moving roughly in the area where the pride has been hanging around for the last couple of days, so he might just be trailing the back end of the pride, maybe just trying to catch up to them for the morning. Maybe he finds them later on today, or maybe even into the night. So we're driving past our tented camp, which is on the left hand side of us, and usually around this time of day there's a whole troop of baboons that comes down onto the road over here, and that's good. I'm glad everyone's excited.
Yeah, Eric, take Stable Road.
So like I was saying, there's a big troop of baboons that comes out, and sometimes they're very accommodating with us and often groom and warm themselves up on these nice big open roads. It's amazing just to think how resilient these animals are, and we can't know for sure, but that leg of his looked like it could have been broken or at least fractured. And I mean, humans would need surgery, we would need to be on crutches, on wheelchairs, we'll be bedridden for a number of days. But this guy has just been conserving his energy, and that's why we haven't been seeing him moving around too much. Scarlett, absolutely, I agree with you. I mean, that's what I was saying. So he rested and conserved as much energy, and only really moved around when he felt like it was absolutely necessary. And that afforded him the chance to be able to move and keep up with the pride, managed to get a meal, got completely full. And I'm sure all of that is just helping him recover, which is amazing. It will be really cool to see what he's looking like now. We're actually not too far away. There's a waterhole that he's heading towards. He is walking pretty much along the bank of the river that we've been driving along this morning. And so we'll dip off this main road shortly. And hopefully we'll be able to link up with Ronan and Sean, who are still following him around. Quirgy, you're asking if animals will knock over those telephone poles, and surprisingly not, actually. They treated, and I think that smell will probably deter them from knocking over the poles. Sometimes they'll come up and rub up against them and use them for a scratching post, so you'll sometimes see a pole that over years just gets thinner and thinner, and it looks like it could get pushed over at any point. But then also, I mean, it's a piece of dead wood. It doesn't really serve much in terms of resources for these animals. They don't really get food from it. If an animal's pushing over a tree, for example, it's pushing it over for the roots, it's pushing it over for maybe the leaves or the bark. So there's some sort of purpose as to why they push over a tree. Mostly elephants will do that. With a telephone pole, not too much point in pushing over something that's just dead. Okay, so I think we are coming up. It's a very old road that we only use for sightings now. So it's we haven't used it in the last couple of months. So whilst we spend some time coordinating and trying to find the other vehicle and hopefully show you this beautiful young male lion, we'll send you across to Tristan, and I'm sure once we see the male, we'll be back.
Checking out for lions because we got an update that the Nkuhuma Pride and at least one Avoca was heading north towards our town. I didn't pick up any tricks that I could see, and then I decided let me just quickly shoot towards Chitwa and check their western boundary in case they came out a little gari that way. So that's what we're busy doing now. I don't have tracks for... here we go. There's lion tracks here, but I don't know how fresh these are. There's also tracks for what looks like a leopard here too. But that looks like the lion's there walking along. I just want to check the tracks nicely here. Yes, this is an entire pride of lion looking here, not a leopard. So they came here, so this is where the tracks go. Let's just follow these and see where they head from here. The male sounds like he's heading straight north towards the southern boundary, so we thought we'd just take a gamble on Chitwa. And I know that sometimes they come kind of eastwards, which is exactly what they've done now, is they've walked east. Luckily, it seems like they haven't turned into a net yet, which is a good thing. Looks like they're still going, so I wonder if they're not way near the airstrip. Could very well be possible. We'll go and just double check there. What else was I going to say? Oh yes, I was going to say that yesterday evening we saw a leopard, everybody. Yay! We were on our way home and we tried to go live with it. We did everything we could, but we had, between a few little tech gremlins and the fact that the leopard wasn't the most relaxed, it meant that we, by the time we got everything sorted out, we had lost him, unfortunately. But it was a male leopard that comes, I was actually talking about him the other day. He's been on Buffelshoek. Rowan from Ngala saw him in 2016, which is amazing. So, he comes from up that side, we think maybe from Kruger. There's not that much information on him, but he's a beautiful male. He's not he wasn't as big as Ghana, that's for sure. He doesn't have a huge Jew, but it's not, it wasn't too bad, like I say, with the car. He was actually fairly alright. He allowed us to follow him a little bit, and he was in, and that's what made the biggest... was actually walking in areas where Hukamuri normally the place in that area. But it's interesting because we've got Bulawati. The tracks are still around here. They've actually gone off the road. Now I think I might have cut. They've gone in the...
Sorry for the breakup there. We just came around the back end of the Simbambili Dam. Watching this beautiful Birchall starling picking around for insects, morning breakfast. I believe there's a huge movement internationally towards insects as a new form of protein. I was reading something about it the other day. We're all becoming insectivores. Ooh, sounds like something interesting is happening with Eric. Let's send you over to him.
We've just managed to catch up to this male lion, and look at him. He's standing up, he's looking around, he's calling, and see that leg still isn't looking great, but we're just saying, for him to be able to get up and move around, he must be feeling much better. So he's not putting too much pressure on it, but I mean, compared to what it was like a couple of days ago, it is a recovery. and it's hopefully from here just going to get better and better and better. So he's not completely healed, and he's not 100%. You see that leg isn't looking too great, but every now and again he does put pressure on it, which is pretty good news for us. So although it doesn't look promising, for him to be moving around and walking and head up and looking relatively good, like I say, it's a good sign that he's on the mend. I think he has been spending the last at least 20-30 minutes or so walking, and so I'm sure that's quite taxing on that injured leg, and so that's why it seems like he's spending less time putting pressure on it. He was walking maybe every second step he would put weight down on it. Now he's not really putting any pressure on it. But he's walking, and we heard him contact calling very briefly, so he could be on the scent of the rest of the pride, although they were quite far away from this area last night. He might just have caught a whiff of a lion that he was trying to follow. There he is in the gap there. See, now he's putting pressure on it again. So compared to when we last saw him, when he was completely full, he looks like he's digested the majority of that food. And so he would really appreciate a good meal. Yeah. Chris, you're saying even if it's a small recovery, it's a good recovery. So yeah, he is just about to go down into the riverbed, actually. We'll see if we can get a spot here. Might be a gap that we can poke our noses down and look across the river as he walks, and then it will be a pretty unobscured view if we can get there. But I'm not going to go too much further than this, and I don't think we'll get around the corner, unfortunately. Maybe. Yeah, you can just see him. Have you got him there, Owen? There we go. Now we see, and he's come down into the riverbed. I mean, this is the river that we've been seeing him around for a long time, so I'm sure it's a familiar spot. See, he's lying down now. Seems like a lot of the muscle on that leg, the wound at least where the bite was, seems to have healed really nicely. But now the problem is the muscles deteriorated around there. Big yawn. So I think what we actually might do from here, it seems like he's settled down, so we could potentially try and loop around to the riverbed and see if we can see him from that side, and we might get a closer look just to monitor how that leg of his is doing. Whilst we do that though, we'll send you across to a waterhole, I think with David, who's with some hippos.
Don't worry, we are not phased to be interrupted at all when you're sitting at such a beautiful waterhole. The beautiful hippo. And beautiful bird life. Our Birchall starling has not moved. He's still right here scratching for insects. What we were talking about was how people are moving towards insects as a form of protein. It was just something I had read. I don't know much about it at all. Sorry, those Egyptian geese want the spotlight. They are being very loud. Maybe they were commenting on our discussion about eating insects. They do not like insects at all. They like vegetable, I suppose you could call it vegetable matter. Aquatic plants and tubers and roots and things that they can find on the side of the banks. Oh, I'd like to research the that insectivore movement a bit more. It's quite interesting. Crazy how ideals change. I suppose people have been eating insects for thousands of years. People still eat insects in some parts of the world. Out here, when our termites come out of the ground, the alates, the winged termites, sometimes called flying ants, everything eats them, including people. As kids, we used to grab a handful every now and then. Doesn't taste like much, but obviously very high in protein. Well, we're going to be moving off shortly. It's been lovely spending some time down here at Simbambili Dam. So let's send you over to Tswalu with Dylan.
So we're approaching these meerkat burrows now, and they are super relaxed, but we'll just obviously go slowly, and I want to see before they get out of bed, I want to actually just show you some of the signs, how we know that they're actually in these burrows. And that obviously we've got a team of people that are really dedicated to following these animals and that, so we know every evening when they come back. Actually, there's one just sticking its head out now. Just to Jandre's left, there's one actually got its head out the burrow now. There we go. Look at how awesome is that, eh? Okay, so the meerkat actually beat us to it. I was going to show you guys the tracks and stuff, which we can do just now as well. How awesome is that? Yeah. He's doing like a temperature reading now. It's like, yeah, what's this weather like? Look around, and of course, jokes aside, you also got the side of the watching out for predators. That first little one that comes out, he's got to be super sharp. Because, as our habituators have watched where they go down, you can also get predators that know, okay, those meerkats are down at this burrow, those ones are down at that burrow, and could come back early in the morning. We've actually had people witness, just a little bit later than this, when the meerkats are out, an African wildcat running and grabbing a pup, running off with it, and then the entire group, the entire bunch of adults chased this wildcat, and they actually dropped, the wildcat actually dropped the pup, and it got back with the parents completely unharmed. So they're tough little animals, these are. So if the one's out, sometimes what happens, they might come out, go back down. I'm glad you're all as excited as I am, because this is really cool. So you mustn't worry if he goes back in again. Okay, it's perfectly normal, especially with this weather that we've got moving in now, with this wind. And Jandre, there's one right in front of Jandre's knee now, right in front of Jandre coming out. I'm standing a little bit away. This animal's popped up about 2 meters distance from Jandre, and they're totally relaxed. So if he goes back down, like I was saying, it's perfectly normal. It's cold weather. They're just waking up now, looking out for danger. That is awesome, eh? I'm glad you feel that way, Trish. I don't know about the meerkats, but they are pretty awesome. You can see how he's hunched over, so he's still cold. They just got to warm up now. And if that sun is still behind a big bank of clouds, but if it comes out, you'll actually see they'll get out and they'll start facing directly towards the sun, and they'll stand on top of these little mounds of sand in front of the burrows, face towards the sun, and that'll warm them up nicely. Cute, eh? So they, just out of interest, they're the same family. Food. Typically the larger snakes, like the cobras and things that we get here, they'll actually just mob them to try keep them away from the burrows. That's probably one of their biggest threats to the pups, when they've got small little pups. This group is actually alright, so I think we're breaking up a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. Alex, that's a good question. They can have anything between 1 to 5, occasionally 6, but 1 to 5 is the average. So I suppose the big question there is, aside from how many do they actually have, is what is the survival rate of the pups? And that's a difficult one to predict. And a lot's got to do with the quality of the habitat at a particular time of year. They can have pups at any stage of the year, obviously depending on food availability. So if you've got a colony like this and you've had really, really good rains, or a number of seasons of good rainfall, and there's a super abundance of food, and it's actually during the summer months, they could have 3, 4, 5 pups and they could all survive. But you could be going into a drought cycle with way below average rainfall, and you might have 5 pups born, but maybe only 1 survives, or you could get a predator that goes for them. So it's very variable. Good question. I don't know if you saw that meerkat just now. He just pointed straight skywards. He just looked up, and now he's actually starting to look out for raptors. It's birds of prey, so it's not good weather for raptors to be flying in with this breeze and cloudy, bumpy weather. But they'll just keep their eyes open for them anyway. I'm just going to move slowly across to the right of this little guy. Let's head back to David. So these little guys are still waking up. So I think let's head back to David and see what he's following up on that side.
Just came around for a nice close-up of the hippo, who's now just gone under. I was reading up on hippo and carcasses out of interest sake because of the recent impala carcass found in this dam. And it's commonly known that hippo aren't carnivores, but there have been accounts of them actually killing certain species. I read a story of a hippo killing an eland calf, and it tossed it about for a few minutes. There's a couple different stories like that. Hippo killing antelope. They haven't visibly well, that's what he has to say about the matter. He is not a killer, vehemently defending himself. But all these stories, no one really observed the hippo eating the meat. They just observed the hippo chewing on it and throwing it about. So I'm not sure. I still don't think they're even omnivores. I wouldn't say that they eat meat. I've definitely never witnessed it, and I haven't actually read anything that's witnessed hippo. Sorry, sun's in my eyes here. I haven't actually witnessed anything that's anyone's really seen hippo swallowing meat. It's just been witnessed that they have actually killed antelope before and chewed on it and thrown it about, so the story goes. But then even more accounts in that is of them actually rescuing antelope, which is very interesting, rescuing them from crocodile, rescuing them from hyena, wild dog. There's a couple different stories, especially in Kruger Park and Wangi National Park, that have been recorded by people saying they've seen hippo on one occasion pull an impala away from crocodile and push it to the bank. Another account of hippo rescuing a kudu that was chased into the water by a wild dog. The kudu kept trying to get to the deep water and the hippo kept pushing it back towards the side of the bank. Eventually the kudu drowned, it kept going back into the water, and the hippo proceeded to push it to the bank again. So very interesting. It's I think it was another story of an impala that was getting eaten by a wild dog on the side of the bank, and hippo ran out the water, chased the wild dog away, and kind of stood over it, almost like standing guard. It's a very bizarre behavior. I'm not sure what the where the what they're actually thinking when it comes to meat. Perhaps just a curiosity. On the note of interesting and curious, let's send you back over to the meerkats.
So this little guy that popped up has just gone back down again. We had a beautiful shaft of sunlight coming through a couple of minutes ago, so I was hoping they were all going to pop out, but that's now disappeared, so they've gone down again. But the fact that they're already starting to move around underground tells me they're probably not going to be too much longer before the group is out. And this group's actually got a couple of youngsters with him. I think they're about 2 months, just over 2 months old now, and moving around quite a bit, so that'll be super cool if they come out as well. And at this age, those youngsters are playing a lot. Yeah, one's popping out now again. Sophia, that's a great, great and very cool question. Yeah, they do get along. I don't think there's any specific interaction between them that I've actually seen, but yeah, I haven't seen any Lion King scenarios, certainly not at Swallow, but there's no let's say, call it bad feelings between them. You know, we'll often get warthogs when a group of meerkats is foraging. You'll often get a warthog walking past. The meerkats don't bat an eyelid. The pig normally has no interest in the meerkats either. So I think it's quite of a harmonious existence between them. That one's giving Yandre the eyeball there. Notice how small their ears are. They can actually close their ears properly so they don't get sand getting into the ear canal. Because they're spending a lot of time with their heads down holes, excuse me, digging burrows, that kind of stuff and that. So they need to be able to close their nostrils, close their ears. Agreed. They are super curious, Courtney. And that curiosity is what keeps them, enables them to survive. Because that curiosity is like, well, what's behind that bush? What was that flying overhead there? What was that sound? Those are all like things that give them cues as to, maybe the presence of a predator or something like that. Any kind of danger. So, the curiosity is a good thing. See, this one's still, his hair's still standing up, quite fluffy. So Talina, yeah, we've spent many years following these meerkats, and we've got a couple of different groups, which if you keep watching, you'll see them over the next couple of weeks. And people love seeing meerkats, as well as a lot of other animals, and over the years they've just become really used to our presence, and obviously they don't see us as a threat. As you can see, Yandra is now probably 5 meters, 6 meters away from them, and it is just ignoring him completely. It's barely even looking at me, only occasionally. They don't see us as any kind of threat to them, which is really nice. So essentially, we're just another animal in the environment. So if a springbok had to walk past, or a warthog, something like that, they would just watch it and then just carry on doing their normal thing. And remember that they're not just watching out, they're also listening for any kind of warning signs. So your females tend to be a little bit heavier than the males, but otherwise, you get to know the different individuals. But when they come out, then you can actually see pretty clearly which ones are the females. Especially, if the dominant female is pregnant, then it's very obvious. And on that point, within a group like this, remember we were talking earlier about how that it's led by a female. You've got a dominant pair. She will be the only one that's actually allowed to have pups in the group, and so she won't actually allow any of the other females to breed. That's quite interesting, and that the reason for that is they live in these very arid environments normally, where food can be quite scarce. So by preventing any of the other females from breeding, that ensures that her youngsters have got the best chance of surviving. That's quite a tough strategy, but pretty good. So while we're waiting for the others to pop up and get out of bed, let's head over to Eric and see how that injured lion's getting on at Ngala.
We have managed to find him again, and he is still walking, which is very surprising. I thought he might have tried to settle down for the day, but he's basically coming through the bush down towards this road. So I thought we might as well wait for him and watch him come towards us from a distance. So I'm just trying to, I can see him on the left. I'll just get past these bushes ahead of us and then try and reposition. So here we go. That will probably be, how's that? There we go. So now we'll see him coming straight towards us. I know the sun isn't in exactly the right spot. It's almost in the worst spot, but it's really nice. Here he comes. See, he's been doing this the whole morning, so he... Oh, here we go, he's calling. Oh, you can still see the mist coming out of his breath. Beautiful light, there he is. I don't know if he'll be, it's just soft contact calls. Beautiful golden light around his growing mane. See, and it's not like he's struggling. He's walking at quite a pace. He's covering ground a lot quicker than I would have imagined. Sorry, I just want to get that bush out of the way. And then I'll reposition pretty much in the same spot. See, maybe here. There you go. See, and now we get to see his injured side a little bit more, and that hip is still looking like it's got a lot of muscle to gain, but I mean, he's doing well. Yeah, Darcy, and that breath is amazing, and it just shows you how cold it is still. It is warming.
it seems like there's a little technical issue at Ingala, but it sounded like a beautiful sighting. Male walk through, and it's an interesting taking place there. It's going to be fascinating to watch how it all plays out. Young male lion's life is a very difficult one in many respects. Be an interesting one to follow. So I'm not surprised the guys look for him regularly and try and figure out what his next moves are going to be. But we're on Chitlans went south into a nets, but that is the Nkumai. The lions that they have on Little Gari are the Evoker males, Blondie and Mohawk. So we, I'm afraid, can't do much about that. They go into nets, and so I can't follow them further. But the tracks were super good. I don't think we missed them by far, because there was elephant dung there that was still wet and kind of warmish. You might ask why I know it's warm, because if you put your hand close to it, you can feel the heat radiating off of it. You don't actually have to touch the stuff. But their tracks were on top of those ellies, so they must have crossed there early this morning. It's one of those things that happens, though. It's the way it goes, I'm afraid. But yeah, now we're just trying to drive around Chitwa. I'm just trying to see if there's any sign of Kuchava and the cub, or of Sibui and her cubs. So far, nothing. I haven't found any signs for Sibui. She would have been on the western side of Chitwa, and Kuchava is more the eastern side. So we've just been scratching around the eastern side. Just been checking to see if I can pick up their tracks. The last tracks I had for a leopard on Chitwa was the two of them is just in front. So it wasn't too far from here. So it's a worthwhile area just to check. Kaylin from Ireland, he's saying, you're sure that I'll find a leopard? Well, let's hope so. Last night was so wonderful to see a leopard again. It's been so long, and it was cool because we were driving home and we weren't really paying attention to what we were doing, and we just kind of come from Simbambili and that lioness, and was chatting to BK. And as we came down Vuyatela access, or turned onto Vuyatela access and started going down, this leopard just walked into the road in front of us, and it was just one of those moments where you just kind of, you know, immediately know what you're looking at. And in a way, it was nice to have it, not because I don't want to have one live, but it was just nice to have one for myself in a way. I don't know why. It just was nice to appreciate it and just sit and watch for a little bit rather than to kind of to think about it. So it was really, really pleasant. Another one this morning. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to David and see how he's doing on Simbambili side.
Shame they're not having a good morning with this temperature. Ooh, there's some nice sun coming through. If we're just patient, they're going to start standing up. Here comes another one, here comes another one. And there's pups. Genre, to your right. Ordinarily, I can't agree with you more. And it's always funny because I have so many favorites, and that's the problem. Every second animal I come to is my favorite. But these have got to be up there. I mean, look at that. Cute. So those are the little ones that you can see there now, and running across to the adult. In Afrikaans, one of their names is a on Christine, the diet of a meerkat, so they regarded as primarily insectivores, so they'll be eating a lot of insects, and also but it's actually more omnivorous than insectivorous. But if you read a lot of books and literature on them, people say they're insectivorous. But actually, I mean, they're going for such a wide range of prey items, and scorpions are high up on their favorite lists. they'll be digging out little vertebrates, things like geckos. I've actually watched these meerkat pups eating flowers. Every now and again, in the shots that Jandra is getting of these little guys, he's kicking sand on the other one. You'll see these little yellow flowers, and I've seen pups eating those as well. So they've got a really wide diet range. So good question. So what they're doing now, when you see them digging like this, that is absolutely vital for their survival. In terms of when predators threaten, their first thing is to get underground, get down burrows. And obviously, if they're not maintaining these burrow systems, it becomes pretty challenging for them to find good bolt holes. So every morning they wake up, they get some sun, and then they start maintaining, doing their housework, digging, kicking sand out, making sure those entrances are clean. You notice how thin their tails are. A lot of other mongoose species have got quite bushy tails. They've got very thin tails. And in Afrikaans, which is one of the local languages in South Africa, we call them a stokstaart meerkat, which means it's got a tail like a stick. A mongoose with a tail like a stick. That one's all puffed up. You can see he's still cold though. I know how it feels. Doing a bit of grooming there as well. You know. Meerkats don't hibernate per se. So as these little mammals, our temperatures, I was saying earlier, we're going to go down to -4 in the next couple of days. That's going to be our lowest nighttime temperature this week. But it's even then, that's only for a limited amount of time, sort of early hours of the morning. That'll probably be like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But also the fact that they're sleeping underground in groups. So you got these little engines, inside their bodies that are just creating this beautiful bunch of heat. And sleeping on top of each other, piled on top of each other in the burrows, they actually stay quite warm. And then as the sun comes up, the temperature is going to pick up from there. So there's no real need for them to hibernate in these areas. In fact, in our environment that we're in, there's nothing that hibernates. You can get things like your reptiles that can go for a number of days in kind of suspended animation. In other words, they'll just not go out foraging and that kind of stuff if it's too cold. But that's the closest that we'll get to hibernation in this environment. Oh, there's the pups on the side as well. Beautiful patterns on their back. You see that's really, really good camouflage. That banding on the back. You see the way it digs? It goes down the burrow, digs, gets a pile of sand, and then it like moves backwards, kicking it out behind itself. There you go. They are absolutely adorable. Steve Reed, I totally agree. Wow. I wish you guys were all here to join us with this, man. At least you can see it. Wow. See how dark the eyes are. Jamie, how's it? Yandre also says hi. He just can't lift his hand off his camera, but yeah, great, thank you. We're going to get your cold weather in the next couple of days, so something to look forward to. See how they're starting to face the sun now, eh? as those clouds have pulled back. And see how they actually use their tails, they brace themselves in their tails while they're sitting up. So it's almost like a tripod. And I don't know if you've been able to see, you know, from the angle that we've been getting them at there. Yeah, the meerkat's winning this staring competition, I promise you. It's got these dark pools for eyes. But from that angle, I don't know if you've noticed that that their chests and their stomachs it's got very, very dark skin on it and very sparse fur. And that actually, when they face the sun, that actually enables them to increase their body temperature pretty rapidly. So even the little ones are starting to dig for food now. It's still early days for them, eh? They've got a lot of life lessons to get through. So while these guys are warming up and starting to get ready to move off, let's head back to David at Juma and see what they've got that side.
Welcome back. So cool about those meerkats. I'd love to see meerkats. Very exciting. This is pretty cool. What is it? It's a porcupine quill. One of the most beautiful things you can pick up out in the bush when you're doing bushwalks. You often find these quills. I love the striking black and white colors. Often people collect them over the years and then put them in like a glass vase on a table out here. A lot of the lodges will have that. It's such a beautiful quill. Also very striking animals. Obviously you can imagine porcupines with a whole backside full of these are very, very pretty. We don't see them very often. Generally more active in the evening hours. So obviously these quills are very sharp. If you can have a look there on the tip of my finger, that'll stab right into your finger. It's a little needle. There's a common misconception that porcupine can shoot their quills. They can't actually shoot their quills. They have to actually pierce their attacker and then their quills release. So if they're threatened by, say, a lion, for example, then they have to turn around. The reason they do this is because these quills only actually grow on the back part of their body, the back half, leaving their head exposed. So they'll turn around and they'll present their backside full of quills. The quills stand up, they rustle up, and it rustles its tail, giving a warning of hissing. It kind of sounds like a rattlesnake. These quills are hollow, especially the quills in the tail. It gives the warning, and then if the attacker is not sufficiently scared by that and still approaches, then they'll often run quite quickly backwards and try and impale their attacker after the quills release. These quills can cause some serious injury. They're always very dirty, full of bacteria, so they'll lead to an infection. But generally animals can get over it unless the quill happens to pierce an organ or a sensitive spot. But obviously porcupines are no match for a lion if the lion's determined. So like an old nomadic lion that doesn't have a pride to hunt for him anymore, you'll often find them with a face full of porcupine quills. The viewers are saying we should put it in our hat. What do you think, BK? I'll put it in your beanie, but that might stab you. My hat's even got little leather things on the side to hold my porcupine quill. I can't take it off or my mic will pull out. I'll try and put it in my hat. I can't see BK, you can see. To give us good luck on our day, So another really interesting thing about porcupines that you may not know is actually very good swimmers. I think their quills, because they're so full of air, are actually, don't worry, buoyant. And speaking about swimming and water, let's send you over to Tristan with a crocodile at Chitwa.
You have a crocodile, and David now has a porcupine quill in his hat. How wonderful. It's also nice to hear that Miss Patterson is watching. Jamil, hopefully you're well, sitting in cold Johannesburg. It's always nice when one of the old crew members is part. I saw Conrad was watching, was it yesterday, Emma? That Conrad was watching in his slippers, his pantoffels, which is, we're talking about Afrikaans words. It's one of my favorite Afrikaans words. Is pantoffels, which is what Conrad was doing. He was sitting watching with his slippers on. So it's always nice, like I say, when past members of staff watch, we obviously form close bonds between all of us. We spend a lot of time together, and so, you know, it's hard not to form close bonds. So it's good to hear from the guys and know that they're watching, and always hope that they are well. She says that she is freezing her bottom off in Johannesburg. I've heard Johannesburg is bitterly cold lately. It's a much colder part of the world than where we are. And after working out here for the better part of, well, for me, almost 12 years now, being in the Lowveld, and Jamie, I think she was out for a long time as well. You know, your body gets used to the winters out here, which are pleasant in comparison to those Johannesburg ones. So I'm sorry, Jamie. One thing that will also be rather happy about not being too cold is this crocodile. It's why it's sitting where it's sitting right now. It's trying to warm itself up. Being cold-blooded, it cannot shiver to make its own heat, and so it needs to get some sunshine in order to be feeling sprightly and be active. And these crocs, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they enjoy having a bigger waterhole like this, or if they were happier at a smaller one. I suspect that the smaller one was actually better for them in some respects. It meant that they were able to, one, have a lot more prey animals coming down to drink. So you would have a lot of things like impalas, nyalas, that had to come to Chitwa Dam in order to drink because there was no water anywhere else. So from that point of view, they're not going to get as many of those. The second thing is that as the water expands, so what happens is it floods up into quite shallow sections. Now, sections that are very difficult for the crocodiles to be able to get onto and to hunt a lot of the fish that occur in this dam, because most of what they eat is actually fish, these crocodiles. A lot of people think that they are just, you know, they murder impalas and things like that. It's actually very seldom, especially in this waterhole, that you see these crocs with any sort of big prey. They are predominantly fish eaters in this particular water point. And so as it floods up and it gets this very shallow layer, particularly at the inlet of this dam, which is very shallow, those fish are going to go and hide up there, and it's going to make hunting of fish pretty tricky. But how they do it, if you just go across onto the other side of the dam for me, Alex, you see where the lodge is? Just to the left of the lodge, there's like these little bays that form up against the edge of the lodge and the rooms and those kind of things, and we can kind of show everything off because there's no guests obviously in the camp at the moment. But those bays is how these crocodiles will hunt. Particularly the one bay, do you see that one there where there's the weaver nest and a dead straight tree to the right, I think, of where you are now, Alex? If you come more right, and there's not the one that's closest to not the big tree closest to the lodge, but the next one to the left with the grey bark that's dead straight. There's a little bay there. More to your right, more, long more. So anyway, there's a bay there, and that's where they typically will hunt, and they push their bodies up against it in order to do so. Anyway, it sounds like Eric is back and he's with his lion, and so let's send you quickly across there. We'll continue our discussion just now.
Welcome back to and Beyond Ngala. Just managed to find this leopard that Rowan and Sean had, and he is putting on quite a show. Amazing how many times we've been seeing this male in this area recently. The lighting is perfect. He's walking with the sun behind him, so we're getting these beautiful views And there's that very charismatic tail that they have. He was tired through your follow the last few minutes. He's only just to see off. So come back if we can bring in the bus, and it won't too much for him to disappear. But what a fantastic morning. I mean, we decided to leave that male lion. He'd eventually lay down on the bank of the river. See, oh goodness. So, whilst we try and find this male who's disappeared completely in 2 seconds, we'll send you back to Tristan, and hopefully we'll be able to find him again for you.
Indeed, Eric, and I'm not surprised that we've quickly shipped over to you to interrupt my story. Mine was very boring in comparison to a leopard walking through a lion sighting, so well done, Emma. That was probably the right call in many respects. But yes, this is the bay that I was talking about. You can see it kind of goes up into the sort of grassy area, and what these crocs do is they go lateral to that, so almost perpendicular to the edge of the bank, and then they push their body into it, and what it does is it forces these fish into the shallow bank and eventually up right to the edge of the water, and then they have to kind of jump over the crocodile. And as they come up over the crocodile, then he just lashes out and grabs them midair. It's pretty cool to watch, actually. I used to enjoy it because at Chitwa, when I worked there, you'd have afternoon tea, and for some reason, afternoon tea time was always the time that these crocs would do this nonsense, and they would splash and carry on, and you could sit and watch them going after these fish. It was pretty cool to watch, and to see how quick they were at being able to grab fish midair as they were jumping over them was absolutely phenomenal. So I always thoroughly enjoyed watching these guys eat, and it's been interesting to see the kind of food that these crocs have eaten in Chitwa Dam over the years. I've seen some pretty cool stuff that they've gone after. The poor Egyptian geese must absolutely hate them, because I've seen them smash a few Egyptian geese in their time here, which is not nice, particularly when they have their chicks. When the chicks are those kind of sub-adult phase, that's when they grab them. Deadbush, not really, just purely based off the fact that the dam is so big, and there's so much space that if the crocs get a little bit close, then yes, they'll chase them, but otherwise they just leave each other to do their own thing. There's no real competition between them and not too much chasing that goes on. The only time I ever saw the crocs really getting a hard time from the hippos was when there was a young hippo that was killed by a new bull that arrived at the dam, and he killed a little baby hippo, and the crocs were trying to eat it, and the mother was just chasing these crocodiles everywhere, and even when the crocs weren't anywhere near it, they were still getting a hard time from the hippos. So I think they were being blamed for it, unfortunately, even though it wasn't actually the croc's fault, but the croc just obviously smelled rotting meat and wanted to eat it. Anyway, I think we'll carry on. We'll see what else we can find. It's fairly quiet at Chitwa Dam this morning by the Egyptian geese, and so while we carry on, let's send you all the way back to Swalu Kalahari and Dylan with the meerkats.
Yeah, it's certainly a chilly morning, yeah? And even there's a little one, or two little ones sitting just to my right and actually huddling together. So it's really not warming up here a lot. I'm going to be very interested to see, like I say, from, when is it? From Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, when this cold front has moved in properly. I think they're going to be coming up quite late. So I think rather than trying to waiting for them too long in the morning, I think we'll try to find some other things and then come back to them later in the morning on those days, when Chandra and I have defrosted. So like, and that Okay, I'll take your word for it, Heidi. Neil, brilliant question. Very, very, very good. And the answer is yes and no. So this particular burrow system that we're sitting at now, Jeandre is standing about 12 yards away from me, and there's still burrows extending past him. So the circumference of this, you're probably looking at about, in total, probably about 80 meters. So it's quite a large system. But this system has been active for 7-8 years now, and it was initially started by some ground squirrels and spring hares that had made this, and it's kind of expanded over time. But what you find underground here is that some of the burrows are connected, but a lot of them aren't. And that's why with these groups, when you saw these little guys getting out of bed, you got like one popping out a hole there, one popping out a hole, and then they'll run across to another hole. So, but we know for a fact that some of them are connected and others aren't. So, and I think the smaller the burrow system, the greater the likelihood is that that they are connected underground. And I think as they start expanding, you might get a spring hare moving in from another direction because he knows there's some others here, so he'll dig a burrow, but a little bit away, and that's how these systems start growing like that. But yeah, that's a great question, and the advantage of that is obviously if you've got pups down one burrow, and a snake comes along, looking for a meal, it could go down multiple holes without actually getting to your pups, and then kind of lose interest and move off. And we've actually seen that happening. Wow. See them jump? Yes, the little ones playing in now. This is brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. Yep, this is tough, but someone's got to do this. Debbie, yeah, they've got a lot of different ways of communicating. A very obvious one would be tactile. So, one, especially little ones holding on to other ones, that actual comfort feeling and that's very important. And then things like sight, facial expressions, like a dog growling. These little guys can, growl as well, or not growl, but snarl, so they'll bar their teeth, if they feel threatened. So that's that visual communication as well. And then obviously sounds. They've got a huge range of sounds, and those sounds are very important. They've got different kinds of alarm calls. I'm not even going to try imitate them, especially not when the meerkats are around. But they've got different alarm calls for different kinds of predators. So, an eagle flying in the distance, that seems to be no threat. If one of the sentinels or one of the group sees an eagle flying in the distance, he'll give a little chirp. And what that does is that just alerts the others to the fact that someone has seen danger, but it's at a kind of a safe distance away, and just be aware of it. There's an eagle flying there. It'll be a very different alarm call given if a sentinel sees, okay, here comes an eagle making a beeline for the group with a clear intention of trying to catch him, and then they just drop whatever they're doing and they bolt into their holes. Those alarm calls are different to alarm calls when they're mobbing snakes. Those are different to alarm calls when they actually, there's two groups that are trying to attack each other, on a territorial boundary. So that, yeah, there's lots of different ways that they can communicate. Well, while these guys are about to go foraging, let's head over to Eric. He's got a really cool leopard sighting apparently.
Sorry, it was on the move, so we just had to reposition, and I'm sure we'll get a beautiful visual of him now. There he is. So for a while, he was resting and lying in some shade. And then some francolins nearby got up and started rustling around in the grass, and he came to investigate them. And once he realized that it was just birds, he started relaxing again, and it looks like he's starting to settle down. But we do know that this young male spends a lot of time moving around at slightly odder times of day. So in the heat of the day usually. And I mean, at this age he's still probably looking for much smaller things like little birds, meerkats. Oh, not meerkats, sorry. if he was hunting meerkats, yeah, we would have some sort of sighting, but probably like mongooses and much smaller things for now. And his success rate with the larger things, just because of his experience, is probably very, very low. And so he is up and moving around, but he's not really walking with too much intent. So I think he looks for a place to settle down like he has now. So I actually might just move a little bit more forward. It will give us a really nice view of his face. It seems like he's lying down, probably resting for a little bit, so we'll see him. He's just given us a threatening yawn, so hopefully he doesn't get up. But this is a really, really nice view of him. And a lot of the time, I mean, when I've been watching him, he's been moving, so we haven't really got the chance to watch him and look at his face nicely. And now we might get the opportunity to do so. See, he's doing a typical cleaning, a yawn, so he could get up, but he's in a nice shady spot here, so hopefully he settles down. He's spending a lot of time cleaning, so he might have one or two little parasites or ticks in between those toes. So he's cleaning with his tongue, using a very rough surface of his tongue to try and get rid of anything. And then he's also, with the very front of his teeth, he's trying to pick at something that was probably stuck in between his toes there. I just love how each color blends in and works perfectly with the leopard. The whites and the blacks and that golden color on their coat. It looks like he's found himself a tick. Yeah, I think this leopard is not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, so we'll be watching him groom. And maybe he'll want to try and hunt something that Tristan has. So let's go and see what he's got on offer.
Indeed, although it would have to be a very fast leopard to be able to grab one of these guys. These guys are not slow. So it's not common to get leopards taking Steenbok. But the cool thing about this sighting is there's actually two of them. It's tricky to see where I can't see where the second one is now, but she moved off. But it's a male and female that are paired together. Normally with these guys, you see them just one on their own. But this morning, the two are kind of standing together, and I don't know if they were up to no good, because I came around the bush and the both of them looked very guilty before running away, and kind of trying to hide off down where they are. But there, I can see both of them now. So there goes the one. That's the female running off, and then the male should be joining. There he goes as well. Cool, eh? To have both of them is quite special. Generally don't have the two of them together at all. It was wonderful. It's actually been a ridiculous morning all round. I mean, between the fact that we've got, like I say, the desert areas and the meerkats at Swalu, and we've had leopard, lions, we've had giraffe, we've had elephants, we've had hyenas that are incredibly playful, crocodile. There's been all the things this morning. It's been wonderful. Certainly a nice drive, that's for sure. Hopefully everyone at home has enjoyed it. And it's not over yet. That's the best part, is that you never ever know what could come out. So one thing I'm looking forward to a lot is to see if we get some really cool pangolin or aardwolf sightings. Those are going to be the two that I really think are going to be epic from the Kalahari side. It's going to be nice to see both of them. It's animals that I love spending time with, so I'm excited for those. Aardvark too, actually, that's going to be pretty nice. And the deeper the winter goes, the more chance there is for those species, those nocturnal species. because of how cold it is, you often find them out and about in mornings just trying to warm up, and in the evenings they're out earlier than they would be in the summer. Just checking for any tracks here. Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. It's why I'm here. You're asking that, you were saying that not that you want anything to happen to the Steenbok, but maybe Tundi's around. So we're on Cheetah Cut Line now. We're checking very carefully to see if there is any sign of Tundi coming onto Djuma, and whether or not her little ones maybe have been brought with. And so that's the perfect bait. Sure that Tundi. I wouldn't mind seeing her daughter as well, Kalamba. She's been very naughty, so we're going to try and find her at Summerton and have a good working too. Teenager, but you know, teenagers must, they have to have a little stir talking to time to time, get them into line. Going to have a solid conversation. And we're going to, I think what we should do is get her mom, her new offspring, Kalamba and Tingana, all together, and we can have a talk to the parents as well as the daughter, the new siblings, as to how not to behave, and that this nonsense of hiding away is not going to be tolerated any further, and that they need. That's what I think we need to do. Of course, I'm just talking nonsense, so rather than talking nonsense and you all listening to me jabber away, let's rather send you to a real leopard with Eric.
This male's really spending a lot of time grooming, and I hope Tristan and David have better luck with their leopards in the future in Djuma. We just got super lucky. I mean, we started off looking for him, and then we got distracted by the young male that young male lion. And then literally as the guys were checking in the area, it was right on the road. So it's not like we tracked and worked hard for him. So he gave us a bit of a spoiling this morning. He really, really is focusing a lot on keeping himself nice and clean, and it's something that I've noticed with leopards. They do it a lot. So now it's scratching underneath its belly. I mean, I'm sure the grass is still a little bit damp, and so that was probably something that it was wanting to just try and make sure that it's nice and dry. It's amazing. He's got himself into quite an awkward position where he's almost lying on his back with arms on either side. Now that seems like a much more comfortable position. He's beautiful, and with that face, and now you can really start to see some of the points that we, very well identified. Most of the viewers, and people are saying that it is the Makoti male, and I mean, it's just looking at his size and where he is found is probably one of the easiest ways to identify him. But now he's showing off. But there's a couple of ways, and the spot patterning is something that we look at a lot. So he's got a 2-3 spot pattern from his right to his left, so our left to our right. And then he's got a number of other little unique spot patterns around his face that we use to identify. I can't really see them now because he's moving his head so much as he's cleaning. But I'm very impressed that everyone can identify him as the Makoti male. So as Emma so nicely puts it, this leopard is exercising some morning yoga, and there's some more animals up at Swalu that is doing exactly the same thing. So let's go and see what they're up to.
So here we've just had some good leopard yoga on the other side. Well, these little guys have been doing their own kind of yoga. They were doing a lot of stretching and that just now. But these 3 youngsters have just been gallivanting and going crazy now. So this play behavior is obviously very, very important. You know, it's all life skills they're learning, eh? You know, so you defending themselves, you know, that fighting. So it's play now, but there's a very, very important learning curve there for them. And you see how when they're facing off to each other, they put their tails up. They're actually making these little group calls now. I don't think it's going to be much longer and they're going to actually head off foraging. How low can he go? Old genre, he says his knees are starting to give in now. Now, Christy, takeovers do occur. It's normally if something has happened to the one of the alphas. So, you know, whether that's a incidence of predation, which would be the normal thing. What you do get happening is you can get other animals moving in. So as a colony gets larger, and there's actually colonies on record, not on Swalu, but there are colony sizes on record of up to 50 individuals. Now you can just imagine if you're a meerkat in amongst a group of 30, 40, 50 individuals, you've probably got a greater likelihood of sort of working your way up the ranks and getting a takeover, or even splitting off from the main group and forming your own colony. Whereas if you're in groups, this group is 11 animals here. But if you're in this group and you're the dominant pair, well, it's pretty easy to maintain control of everyone underneath you. So takeovers are not common, but they 100% can take place. In fact, here's another interesting thing about that. We've, speaking of takeovers and that and predation, we've actually seen one of our alphas get bitten by a snake. This was many years ago. The alpha female got bitten by a snake called a puff adder. It's a kind of viper that we get here. And they've got a very, very strong immunity to snake bite. I mean, it has an effect on them, but something that would normally kill other small mammals. These guys go down the burrow, and we didn't see her for 10 days. But the other ones of the group in and out the burrow the whole time. So they're obviously getting food to her somehow. And after 10 days, she actually came out the burrow, quite a bit of hair loss and that, quite thin, but she was still the dominant animal. There's no question. So, yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think there's a lot of dynamics surrounding that. You know, takeovers aren't cut and dry in anything. You know, they're very close to going foraging now. Yeah, these little guys are super close to heading off. So I think let's head back to Eric and see what his leopard's up to.
After that very intensive cleaning session, it looks like he's decided to take a little nap, and so he hasn't really been moving at all for the last couple of minutes. He's just got himself into such a comfortable spot, lying exactly like my domestic cats used to lie when I was back at school. I almost just want to go up to him and use him as a pillow. It would be so nice. It's been really nice to watch him, because I mean, most of the time when we find him, he has been so active, which is really nice in its own way to see cats up and about on the move. But like a few of you were saying a bit earlier, you don't really get the opportunity to sit and watch and see the face of him and just appreciate it. So we've been doing exactly that. We've been looking at all of those little spot patterns, all of the different colors and the different spots, all the way from his legs up into his back. Really is a remarkably beautiful animal. You see like those solid spots that Owen is showing you now, and then as you go into the back, the more typical rosette patterning. So the 3 spots around one center, and then as we pan up towards his head again, you can see those little almost polka dots. I think for me, one of my favorite things is the contrast of the black and the white on the leopard. James, Richard, you asking if we've seen him in any other type of birds' nests. I have seen him in a Wahlberg's eagle nest, and it's actually how we found him one day. We found 2 Wahlberg's eagles being quite distraught, and they were flying around the nest and dive bombing it. And we didn't see anything at first, and then we had a closer look, and it was actually this male leopard. We literally just saw the tip of his tail sticking out on one side, and so I assume he would have caught either the egg or potentially the chick, and the adult Wahlberg's eagles were trying to get him off. So that's Wahlberg's eagle. We've seen him on whiteback vulture nests. I haven't really seen him on anything else. I think he's slowly but surely moving away from that habit, just because I think it's quite a lot of effort to get to the very top of the tree. And I'm sure, I mean, with those vultures, all they have to do is jump up and fly, and they've gone away from him. Having said that, I guess now the vultures will be nesting more and more coming into wintertime. And so maybe he goes back into that habit and starts to pick off those chicks. So it's just the 2 species, but I mean, tawny eagles are also starting to nest, and if he sees that there's an opportunity there and it's an accessible tree, then I would imagine that he would go and investigate it. The mammal kills that we've seen him on have been the smaller things like I've mentioned. So I've seen him on a mongoose kill. I have seen him on a grey duiker kill that he managed to catch himself. Yeah, so I think this might be the end of his morning's activities. It looks like he's probably resting. So we might end up leaving him just to see if we can check 1 or 2 more areas before the end of the show, and we might come back here this afternoon. So in the meantime, whilst we try and find ourselves a road, we'll send you back to Tswalu.
So I keep saying they're going to go foraging, but I'm going to be right at some point. They actually moved out onto this side of the bushes, and then they did some burrow maintenance on this side. And then we thought they were going to move, and then they went straight back to the other side and did burrow maintenance on that end. So I think they're just trying to get all the burrows that they're actually using at the site prepped before they leave. It's actually a relatively and Marie, if you sit very, very still and quietly, they do occasionally come up to you. It's, we obviously don't encourage any kind of touching or anything in that, and that is, a lot of people ask, oh, can you touch these meerkats? And the straight answer is absolutely no. You don't want to compromise these animals in any way whatsoever. But certainly, I mean, we've had meerkats, if you sit there, so we've had meerkats like walking like a foot away from you, like straight past you and ignoring you, like digging for scorpions and grubs and that kind of stuff. So they super relaxed around us, and that's a real privilege. I mean, to be able to watch these animals doing what they would be doing even if we weren't here is just so special. Karen, meerkats spend their days pretty much doing what we're seeing doing now. They wake up, sun themselves, do burrow maintenance, and then move out foraging. But while they're foraging, there's a breakdown in actual jobs amongst them. So you'll get a whole lot of them that'll be foraging, and then you get others, and it could be 1, 2, 3 in a group that are what we call sentinels. And those sentinels are the ones that are constantly on the lookout for danger, while the others have got their heads down digging in it. That role isn't always allocated to the same individuals. Obviously, there's different ones that'll do it. So you got ones keeping guard, other ones looking for food. If the day gets very hot or very cold, they can actually go underground or shelter in the shade of bushes, and then they'll carry on foraging as the temperatures get better again. And that'll bring them over a number of hours back to either the burrow system that they left in the morning, where they'll sleep for the night, or they'll end up at one of the other burrow systems, and they've got an intimate knowledge of all the different burrow systems within their territories. So that's in a nutshell how a meerkat would spend its day. The group at the end's moving a little bit further away now. Let's head over to David and see what they've got on that side.
Well, it's been a very chilled morning here at Simbambili. Just been cruising around looking for tracks, stopped at this little water hole. There's a seasonal little water pool, little wallow. It's still got a decent amount of water in it, so it'll still be here a while. I just actually really wanted to have a little look. So there's always a good spot to walk and check if there was a cat drinking during the evening. But I walked on that side, didn't see anything. I wanted to check here. I'm not seeing anything. I wonder what happened to Tristan's lioness. I didn't actually see anything from where the impala was. I think the hyena munched it up completely. An impala won't go too far in the bush here. Hyenas will make sure that each and every last little bit of it gets devoured. It's interesting, I often find cats prefer these little water holes as opposed to the bigger dams. You know, even these little guys that have, half of it is mud and urine, looks like pea soup. Cats will still prefer to drink here than at a larger dam. Of course not always, but I find that often. I believe everyone's very upset. My porcupine call is right here. I took it out of my hat because I was going to take BK's eye out. This is a very long porcupine call. A little bit too long to wear in a hat. So the show must go on, and a one-eyed BK is no good to any of us. Maybe I'll try and find a feather. A lilac-breasted roller feather is always a goodie for a hat. Deb, you've asked the difference between a lapwing and a plover. And, well, the latest names, they're completely different birds. Let me quickly stop and show you on my mobile app. The most common lapwings we see here are the blacksmith and the crested. Blacksmith and the crested lapwing. And the plovers are, let me just show you the most common ones. There you go, BK. So this is the typical guy that we see. Yo, over here, sorry, it's the sun a bit bad. This is the typical guy that we see along the dams and the waterhole. Sorry, the sun's a bit bright here. Chose a bad spot to do this. Let me move an inch forward into the shade so the BK can show you nicely. Otherwise, the sun is gonna glare at us. There we go, there's a better picture. Mr. Lapwing, remember the very noisy ones we often see? We said they look like they were wearing tuxedos. And then the most common plover we see is the three-banded. And it's... where is it? Sorry, I quickly look here. There we go. It's the most common one we see at the waterways here, a lot smaller. And obviously looks a lot different. I can't remember now, they change the bird name so often. But I think the blacksmith lapwing actually used to be called the blacksmith plover. Maybe I'm confusing myself. But I think it was. Bird names are sometimes a little bit confusing. Especially when they change them, because you get used to one name and then they change it again. Obviously trying to stay with the times as they relate species to each other and decide on which species are related to what, then names can tend to change. While I try and remember some more interesting millennial bird names, I'm going to send you back over to Tristan for an update.
Millennial bird names, yes. The changing of names is quite something. It's because so many of the names for us in South Africa were very South African words. They were things that really were only from South Africa. Lurie is a prime example of that. So that's why they had to change this, because they were trying to standardize it worldwide so that everybody, if traveling, as the world got smaller and travel became easier, everyone traveling to different areas as birders would be able to figure out the same birds and know the same birds. But it certainly makes life difficult. Nowadays it's better because most people that, come into the bush and are going on safaris have started to change. But I've guided guests a few times which only know the old names, and they get very confused by it all. And you've got to kind of go back and remember the old names of birds and be able to then explain to them and to talk to them so that they know what's going on. And it's interesting to see that some of these bird names are ever evolving, like knob-billed duck. I mean, knob-billed duck went to comb duck, then back to knob-billed duck, and just seems sometimes crazy, but I suppose they're just trying to get a standard for everybody to abide by. It is exhausting to keep up with it, that's for sure. I see they've started now with tree names, which is wonderful. That's going to be interesting. They're changing the scientific names of trees, which is not ideal. Chema, gymnogene is always a gymnogene. I know. Gymnogene is the word, but now it's, African harrier hawk. It's a mouthful. Could they not have chosen something a little bit easier? Egyptian geese, are you going to attack Dewey? Dewey doesn't look very fazed by the oncoming threat that is the Egyptian geese pair. Of course, the Egyptian geese would do nothing to this hippo, but Dewey seems very non-fazed by it. Dewey, not Judy, Dewey, Emma. Dewey the hippo, do you not know? This is the hippo. I think was it James that named it, or our Dam Cam viewers. I don't know, but I just know that this hippo is referred to as Dewey the hippo. But I'm pretty sure that we call hippos all kinds of different hippos, all the same hippo, different names. There we go. I'll eventually get there. Sorry, everybody. It's been a slow morning in some respects. The old hamster inside the melon that is my head is not spinning very well this morning. The hamster is taking a nap rather than being on the wheel and turning. But yeah, like I say, this hippo, as you can see, is very unfazed. For some reason, this particular hippo loves this exact spot. It's like the most arb spot in this kind of area. And I don't know why he likes it, because knowing this dam when it's empty, there is no ridge there, there is no mound, there is no big section that he's lying on. He's literally just in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know why he likes it there. For some reason, this is a spot that he spends a lot of time just sitting at, watching the world go by. I don't know if it's because it's close to the dam wall. I don't know if it's just comfortable, but it's weird. There's no geographic structure there that would make it a suitable place for a hippo that is different from anywhere else in this little bowl that is the dam. Anyway, Emma, sorry, I missed what you were saying. I was too busy listening to a bird call and I wasn't paying attention to you. I do apologize. There we go. I thought it was that, but just wanted to make sure. Anyway, I'm going to mill about at the dam here, see what else I can find. Maybe something will come down now that it's getting warm. In the meantime, I'm going to send you back across to Dylan and the meerkats.
And I think for the fourth time, they are about to go foraging. So interestingly, this one adult that's to the right-hand side of the frame keeps watching down in that direction. So there may be something down there that it's seeing. I can't see anything from here. And this is obviously a critical time now as they're moving off to make sure that there's no predators around. And now you're going to start getting those little ones following this one. The two primary predators for meerkats down burrows that we get at Swalu will be snakes. In fact, very close to where this meerkat colony lives, there's a African rock python, or a Natal, what's called a Natal python. And he's not particularly big, he's about 2.5 meters long. But he'll be able to go down these burrows and catch meerkats. And then the other one that's probably even more of a threat to meerkats are rock monitor lizards. That these big lizards, they get to just under or about 1 meter in length. And they're very adept at going down burrows and not just for meerkats, but they'll go down anything that's down a burrow, whether it's a meerkat or a mongoose, a ground squirrel, mongoose, things like that, they'll try to predate on. But if they got pups, that's the time of the highest risk, of predation. And the little pups always have a babysitter left with him. So this little one, when the pups are down those burrows, you'll always get one individual that stays behind to look out for danger, and he'll mob any predator that comes near to try to chase it away. Yes. See how fast they try to cross open ground like this now, and from that burrow system to one of their bolt holes to my left here. Shindra, this is such a privilege for me to be here. There is no question about that. And I'm just glad that you can all share this with me. I mean, this is such an amazing experience. Well, as these little guys are dispersing, Tristan's got a bird of prey that we can head over and look at.
Indeed, we were just talking about gymnogenes and African harrier hawks, and the juvenile one just popped out of the tree right next to us as we linked away to you, and so nicely obliged by landing in the next tree over, and so we've had a really beautiful view of this juvenile bird. It hasn't gotten its grey feathers yet. It's still a drab brown colour, but this guy's really cool. He hangs around a lot on quarantine with the adults. And it's really been interesting to watch every now and then, hearing it call, and the adults kind of showing it how to fly from tree to tree and teaching it how to break bark. The other day I was on quarantine. It was between drives. I don't know what I was doing there. I can't remember now when it was exactly, but they were teaching it, and it was flying from branch to branch and tree to tree, and they were showing it, and it was calling and begging for food, and the adults weren't actually feeding it. They were just kind of breaking bark, and they would feed themselves, and it's almost that teaching process of how to find food for this little juvenile, which is cool. So I'm hoping that we're going to see more of it. It's been hanging around a lot. It clearly likes this little jackalberry that Hosanna used to love so much. That's next to me, and it was sitting in there, and maybe that's where it roosts in the evenings, and then comes out and will hunt around this area. But very different looking to the adults. A lot of people get quite confused with these guys. Juvenile birds of prey are notoriously tough to ID, but essentially those long featherless legs that you can see there, and then the barred tail is a good indicator that it is a young gymnogene. Listen to the birds as it flies away. Causing trouble as it flies off. So the thing is, you can always tell when birds of prey are around as you hear all these other birds start to make noise. But that was wonderful. It was pretty with that blue sky in the background. It was really, really nice. Now, I'm sure Dylan must be super excited to be sharing all of his knowledge about these meerkats and sharing the meerkats with everyone. Meerkats are the greatest little things. I love a meerkat. Spent time with them in Botswana a few times, and they really are such cool little creatures to follow. So busy, so full of noise and personality. So it's going to be fun to follow them again. And I'm sure Dylan is frothing to be able to share the meerkats with you guys on a pretty much daily basis. That's for sure. They're such funny little creatures. I love spending time with them. Like I say, mornings obviously is nice because they all sunbathe and they get active, but the evenings can also be nice when they just start to get to the last place that they settle. And the most wonderful thing, particularly about Tswalu, is that Kalahari area, that sand color, and then at the sunrise and sunset, the way that light just is absolutely magnificent. Kind of gets that red-pink color and just lights up those meerkats so nicely. It's really pretty. A lot of the best meerkat photographs that I've seen actually come from Tswalu. There's been a number of photographers that have taken really serious photographs at Tswalu with the meerkats. So I think we're in for a treat over the next little bit, and knowing Jandre will be getting incredible visuals, and I'm pretty sure very, very well done, because we all know Jandre is pedantic. It's nice to actually hear that Jandre's back. Haven't seen Jandre since November, but he seems like he's been busy and doing well. It's always nice to have Jandre on the vehicle from a camera point of view. He's a solid cameraman and knows what he's doing, so it's always good to have him with you. Right, now talking about meerkats and Tswalu and Jandre and Dylan, and it sounds like the meerkats are off foraging, so let's send you back to Tswalu Kalahari with them and see what these meerkats are going to get up to now.
So they have definitely moved off this time. They moved to one little bolt hole close by to their original burrows, and as you can see, they're starting to run from cover to cover to cover. So now the group is actually officially gone foraging now. There you go, and off they go. But you may notice also how much more alert they are now that they're away from their safety zone, they're spending a lot more time standing up, looking around, you know, there's contact calls the whole time. Because, you know, they can travel in a straight line. You know, we've seen them go more than 1 kilometer away from the burrows. Their territory sizes are anything between 4 hectares to 15 hectares. Those are averages. So they can, I mean, a straight line burrow, a straight line distance away from their burrows, you know, 1 kilometer is a long way for a little animal like this. But again, that the distance that they'll actually move is dependent on food resources. You know, so if they've got a very, very good, or there's a high abundance of food, then they're less likely to move that far away from the burrow. But in times of, you know, if it was a drought time and there's not lots of food around, then they'll be covering big areas. So you tend to find the better the season, the less the distance. The worse the season, the greater the distance. Oh, this is beautiful, eh? Wow. Eva, I can't agree with you more. They make me smile all the time too. This is brilliant. Eh? Well, our little friends have gone off foraging. So Yandra and myself are also going to go off foraging. So let's hand over, and yeah, thanks very much for joining us at Tswalu.
We've just got such a nice big herd of zebra here that we wanted to show everyone before we call it a day, or call it a morning at least. And there's the main group is off to the left of us, and they are foraging in some very long grass, so we might only just see the top of their manes. There's another couple that are more on the right hand side here. And I've just heard an impala. It looked like it was starting to rut, but it seems like it's actually more alarm calling than rutting. It is a male though, so I have to just be extra careful. I don't want to get too excited. He's looking straight at us, and there's nothing really in between us and him, and so I think it might just be a confused male. All of the zebras here haven't reacted at all, so it's probably nothing. You can see him there. So that's the one that's creating all of the noise, alarm calling, but I don't think there's anything to worry about. I mean, none of these zebras have reacted at all. Another beautiful scene. I mean, there's all of these zebras toing and froing, the Drakensberg in the mountains. It's certainly been a wonderful morning. Absolutely. I think the more exciting parts of the drive are definitely meeting Tswalu. I can't wait to see some of the footage and see what it's like. We've got some beautiful lions, leopards, crocodiles, hippos. So from everyone here at WildEarth, we'd like to say thank you, and we'll see you next time.